Bloodthirsty Salamander Experience, a podcast where a couple of friends get together to talk about relationships, politics, the struggles and successes of life, maybe a little sports, and possibly some aliens. All the while, we're going to be coming from an everyday person's perspective. My name is Justin, and I'm here with my co-host, Steven. What are you drinking tonight, Steven?
I'm going with a usual and good old Budweiser.
Good old Budweiser. Oh, that's always good. So what are we thinking about today?
Well, there's big news out with the Kyle Rittenhouse verdict. It's been very intriguing to follow. Shall we get into it?
Definitely. We have to. And after that, if we have time, definitely want to talk about this Epstein maniac mistress, and why nobody's talking about that. But back on the Rittenhouse thing real quick, just starting off based on what I saw in the courtroom, I thought the correct verdict was made. Like, what about you? Do you think that this case was correct? Was it over politicized?
I think if you take away the political part of it, I don't even think it even goes to trial. Like, I don't think the prosecution comes after him. And I think that's mostly why the prosecution seemed to embarrass himself so much, is because they had nothing. They knew they had nothing. And every time they put a witness on the stand, their testimony vindicated the defendant. And it was just
Which is wild.
Laughable almost. Because it's like, this guy works for the state. How does this guy have a law degree? Because he almost at times seemed to be asking the defendant what the laws were, like he didn't know. And I mean, it was simply because he had no case and he had to get the defendant to say something dumb on the stand. And that's just was kind of my view of how that whole thing went.
That's how I view it. Like, there's a lot of previous, like, how did we get here? But just in the whole case itself, like, it was poorly prosecuted. Like, that guy was stretching either for a mistrial or just knowing, through his experience, because it was stated by the defense that this isn't his first case. He's a well-respected person in this little court district, and it had a lot of experience. And he was just shitting the bed. He was just being so bad. I feel anybody in any legal capacity could have done better.
Defense attorney has known that guy and worked around him for like 20 years. Have a cordial or not a professional relationship together. And he said that's what kind of threw him off, was because he knows how good of a lawyer he is and knows that he said, even, a prosecutor's job is not to necessarily put people in jail, but to seek the truth. He said that's what surprised him most about some of the things that the prosecutor tried to do.
Yeah, and even like with the evidence provided, like I was just, nothing was over the top, like, oh my God, that was such a wild piece of evidence, that's going to change the subject. Like, there was no shocking evidence, in my opinion, that changed anybody's mind.
No, and it just seemed like everybody that got on the stand, was basically, whether they were the guy that got shot or by Rittenhouse that didn't die, or, anybody else, like everything they were saying was basically making a self-defense case for the defense and Rittenhouse.
Everything about it was just as a self-defense case. And I think that's kind of where the defense won in a large capacity. However, they did the depositions to provide like what evidence is going to be allowed in court, which freaking prosecution then goes against what was allowed in court just to do what? Make a statement? I think to push for mistrial, because nothing in there says it wasn't self-defense, which is just wild. It's another Second Amendment thing of like, you attacked him, you got shot. Simple as that. There's a whole lot of these why was he out there parts, but in the case, like that's where I want to keep it like simple, is like the case itself and what was presented in the courtroom was a self-defense case. It wasn't anything more.
Yeah, and then I don't think you could have asked for a better case as a defense attorney, because it was all on camera. You're not just having, he said this guy saying this. You're not depending on just solely witness testimony. All of it was literally on camera.
Everything about it was on camera and talked about. Absolutely like wild for some of the energy you get about this case and the opinion about him actually, or about the verdict being correct. It's like, did you not watch exactly what was presented in this square of lifetime that is just all self-defense? He got hit by a skateboard, shot the dude. Guy pointed a gun, shot the dude. Guy attacks him, shot the dude. Like, he didn't go out there shooting the guy first or making threats first.
Even to push that farther, the first guy that was chasing him, he was yelling friendly, 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 like, I'm not a threat to you, trying to get the guy to stop chasing him. And then that didn't work. He turns, kind of points his gun at him to think, okay, maybe if I point my gun at him, he will stop chasing me. Guy ignores that and continues to chase him. And then once he tries to take the guy's gun, then he fires. And even the guy that hit him with the skateboard, he had hit him with the skateboard once and knocked him to the ground. And it wasn't until he hit him a second time with the skateboard. I don't know that when you're in that situation that you even know what you're being hit by.
Right, yeah, you're just being impacted.
Right? Like, does he have a skateboard? Does he have a pipe? You're just being hit in the neck and head area. The last one, like you said, the guy sticks his gun in his face after he's already been being chased and assaulted by multiple other people.
On his back trying to fight his way up.
Yeah, and I don't get it. I can tell you this, I'm not ever going to chase anyone with a gun for any reason.
Especially to do with this skateboard. As an avid skateboarder, no, you got a gun? Shit, I'm back off. I don't care if it's pistol, the AR, like, what are you thinking? It's like, no, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to go push the other direction.
When you start physically assaulting someone who's already, that you knock to the ground, and then you continue to assault them, there are tons of people around him. You are putting him and yourself in a really bad situation. I could totally understand why he felt his life was threatened. It's an unfortunate event.
Absolutely.
He wasn't just running around instigating things, talking shit to people, trying to kill people. I mean, for the most part, he was putting out fires, washing graffiti off of things, and offering medical help to people. You will never convince me that that kid went there with the hopes or intentions to shoot someone, because if he had, he wouldn't be offering medical help to people. He wouldn't be trying to, like, put out fires. He'd have just been walking around with a gun hoping somebody got in his face.
Yeah, and a whole lot more people would be shot if his whole intention was to go out there and shoot people.
Because he had multiple opportunities just basically open up.
To just let it fly, right? So it's not like even those like mass shooter cases. I heard somebody be like, oh, active shooter. Is like, no, man.
An active shooter would have just been walking around shooting everybody. He only shot people that attacked him after he was basically pushed to that point.
And it kind of goes, interestingly, with his accuracy and his whole reserve to just shoot only those who attacked, which is wild to think about because...
Yeah, there was nobody hit by accident.
No bystanders. Yeah, nobody. Except for those who tried to attack him and he is then defending himself were the only ones shot. So the active shooter is just asinine. It's like he... weirdly enough, had so much control that he hit his targets pretty damn good.
That is honestly very impressive because to have that kind of composure in that kind of situation, not something you would really expect.
No, I feel like part of this could go into teach your kids early how to use a gun and prevent bad shootings, because this is in a weird way kind of an example of if you're taught how to use a gun and use it responsibly. Is this not an example of that?
For the situation, you would have to say that it was used correctly. You don't just fire at anyone. In a self-defense situation, you should only shoot somebody in a very close proximity to you.
Mm-hmm. And then especially only when you have to use it. Like in every aspect of the Second Amendment, it is really used to defend yourself and protect yours. And that's exactly where every bullet went.
And he didn't even shoot everyone that attacked him because there was the guy that kicked him in the face.
I thought there was that guy. He never gets talked about, so I didn't think about him.
He didn't get shot, but it just a bad situation that nobody should have been there in the first place. Nobody you can say, well, he shouldn't have been there. Well,
correct.
Neither should they have been. And, like, well, he shouldn't have had a gun. Well, neither should the felon that had a gun. Everybody, you can argue that everybody shouldn't have been there.
Yes, because he had just as much right to be there as everybody else.
He did. And Whether you agree with why he was there or not is irrelevant. Whether you agree with whether he brought a gun or not is irrelevant. It doesn't change the fact that those people chose to attack him and he felt his life was in danger.
Mm-hmm.
Now, disagree with that or not, that is our right as Americans to protect us.
Correct. And it's like, and at any point, you always have to bring up the guy who pointed a gun at him. It was like on the same gun rights, gun freedoms.
Yeah, a guy that was a felon and is not legally allowed to own a gun.
Mm-hmm.
But he had one, chose to chase after someone who, if you watch the video, the whole time the kid is just trying to get away from the very first guy before any shots were fired. And even before the first guy, there were shots fired in very close proximity to him. Did he turn and start shooting at that point? No, he kept running until he was trapped. And the guy tried to take his gun from him.
Yep, a quintessential self-defense case.
Yeah, I mean, it is. And the unfortunate part is because the way our society is, the way media is, it's super polarized and politicized.
Yeah, which goes into like, what was the media coverage? All of that was all these topics, sayings, like, it's just regurgitated throughout the media on what they think or who is funding their thoughts.
And I think you said that perfectly, who's funding their thoughts, because things that I learned in the trial that really jumped out to me that were inaccurately reported over and over and over, the media, was that he wasn't from Kenosha and that he lived in Illinois. Well, he did have residency in Illinois, but his whole life his dad's lived in Kenosha, 20 minutes apart from where he lived in Illinois to where he lived in Kenosha, and he grew up a divorced home. When you have split parents, you live both places. It was his community.
Yeah, so it was really like almost like a Kansas City side, Kansas City, Kansas, Kansas City, Missouri, but it's just divorced parents, like, because I didn't know that part. So it's just literally, that's all it is like a 20, 30-minute drive.
Yeah, it's super close. His dad, his aunt, his cousins live in Kenosha, staying mostly with his mother in Antioch at the time. However, he has spent a good portion of his life and his family's from there, living back and forth between the two places. So it was indeed part of his community. And then the other lies that he brought a gun illegally over state lines, which was never true, but the media kept reporting it as it's true. The media reported that he was a white supremacist with no evidence of that. He's white and he shot 3 white people. So it seems to even bring that narrative in there without evidence of it. It just seems unprofessional, unjournalistic, for the sole purpose of stoking racial division in this country.
Absolutely. Like, I think that right there is perfect, because it was started, black guy got shot in the back by a white cop, but then this instance is just all non-racial. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense to make it larger than what really it was. In a sense, again, I'm only keeping myself in the courthouse square. It was white guys shooting white people, doesn't matter. The dude got attacked. The dude protected himself. The dude doesn't have any charges because it's a self-defense case. And then the media coverage would be like, oh, this, that. And you have, these different celebrities, politicians chiming in like, oh, I'm shocked. It's like, but really, are you? Like, are you really that shocked?
Are you shocked, or are you just feeding into your made-up narrative that you're just part of the problem? Like,
yeah.
Did you even watch the case? Did you look at the facts? Because I feel like no matter what any of the jury was, whether they're Republican, Democrat, conservative, progressive, whatever, they were faced with the facts. And then whatever they had seen in the media, which was probably mostly wrong and mostly falsely reported, once they were shown the facts of the case and what actually happened, they probably had to sit there like the rest of us and like, wait a minute, what? Why are you saying this when this is what happened?
Mm-hmm.
You guys are supposed to report the news, not make it up.
And that's what bends my conspiracy thoughts are all more about, like, who is really in charge and what is their psychological win to getting us to see it their way. Like, the way that they want us to see it. And this is one of those that bad media coverage comes through, and they were just being like, oh, we're so divisive. You have to either see it this way or that way. And it's like, well, it's just not that type of case. Like in this whole situation, it's not that type of racial divide or cultural divide, even socioeconomic divide. This is just simply a protest. And this kid comes out into his community, because we saw it in our small town community over in the Tulsa area, where people would come out and just be out there with guns.
And people not even from Tulsa.
Not even from Tulsa. They just come out because they heard a protest is happening, and the temperature of the nation was to lead to riots. And so in the same sense, we saw it all over the country in small town America, where people are just coming out with guns. Like, this is just America. We got guns. It's got the Second Amendment.
Well, yeah, I would say that our hometown, which when there was talk of the protest there was a lot of business owners and stuff that did kind of line the streets with guns, basically, to say, you're not burning our town down.
Mm-hmm.
But what I was saying about people that weren't even from there, I remember when all this stuff was happening in Tulsa, you said you were following them on TikTok and different things, and you were like, these people didn't know where this was or that was. Like, you could clearly tell they were not from Tulsa because they had no knowledge of the area.
I do remember telling you about that. It was a situation where they were like saying, let's go to this area of the city. And it's like, why would you go out to the middle of nowhere? Downtown's 12 miles the other direction.
There's nothing over there, right? And it starts to make you think, like, why are these people that aren't from Oklahoma, aren't from these cities, showing up in places and setting it on fire, destroying personal property, destroying government properties, destroying private businesses? For what reason? Like, it's not even your community. What are you doing?
Anarchy. Pure anarchy, which, again, I enjoy my anarchy, but I don't actually want to live in it, and I actually don't want to repair it, and I don't want to have to drive through it or be distracted or delayed because of it, because my day-to-day is very structured. As I think about it, like, I can't live in an anarchist sort of society.
No, and at the end of the day, most of us live paycheck to paycheck, and that's great. You want to stand on the highway, shut down the highway, whatever, but we got bills to pay. Well, the rest of us, I don't know how you're doing it, but we got to go to work. Otherwise, our rent's not getting paid. Otherwise, we're not going to have anything to eat. Otherwise, we can't put gas in our car. Otherwise, we can't splurge and buy a 12-pack. Like, that's just not an option for most people to. I get what you're saying. I don't think you have the right to inhibit us from making it to work on time or getting a full day's work in, just because you want to protest something. And I don't think because you disagree with something gives you the right to do millions, if not billions of dollars of damage across the country.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that's an interesting perspective. Because I know when this was all going on, I was more on the screw the corporations. They got insurance to pay for this, but totally disregarding the individuals that still have to show up to work, to where, if you don't show up, you don't get paid. It doesn't matter if your place is on fire or not. Like, simple as, you don't show up, you don't get paid, and through no fault of their own.
And if they burn down Target, burn down Walmart, burn down Best Buy, whatever they burn down, that was your job. And they're not going to pay you tomorrow because there's nowhere to go to work at.
And that's simple as that.
So all of a sudden, you're jobless. You got to find a new job, or hope that they got another store in a nearby vicinity that they can get you working at. It's never just the corporations that are attacked. I mean, small businesses are not corporation. A lot of times they're not even rich people. They're just getting by too, doing something they love, or, something they've created. They may have to shut their doors and never reopen.
Yeah.
And what have you accomplished? Do you think those people now are going to be in support of you? Whatever your message was? No, they're not. They're not even going to remember your message. They're just going to remember you burnt their store down for no reason. They're going to remember the sub shop they've had for 20 years they had to close down.
Yeah, because you destroyed it. And it goes to was it Nipsey Hussle and the one rap artist who just got shot in his hometown?
The Dolph guy?
Yeah, Dolph. It's
who was trying to help people and stuff.
Trying to help people out at the cookie shop, doing cool things like this. Like, they're trying to get their community up and going, and they just get gunned down with it. It's like, this is just asinine and chaotic. Like, if you want to go do this stuff, go leave. I don't know what to tell you. Like, we're not going to help.
And if you're screaming, we need change and we need this, and then people are out there trying to do change and do, make their communities better, and you kill them for what? What are you killing them for? Because they're trying to improve things? They're trying to help people? Like, it doesn't make any sense.
It's 0 sense. And that's the saddest part. I changed in my thoughts of burning it all down to the insurance will protect it. Who knows how much they invested time, money-wise, how much they're probably not getting paid as regular as their employees to put on these private businesses. Like, I remember seeing a lady that had a cookie shop or a cupcake thing in Baltimore, and minutes after they put up all their boards, their stuff was ripped down and burned. It was just absolutely wild. And then you hear their story about that. Like, now, what are they supposed to do? They're out here creating jobs, creating a community, and you just destroy it. So it's like, well, that's on you guys. Like, if you don't want the change, like, you want to preach about it, but you don't do anything about it, or you set it backwards, how does anybody want to spend money that's going to be wasted?
Exactly. And then it's on taxpayers and insurances and to rebuild all that. And then if they decide not to rebuild there and they're like, we're not going to rebuild here, they're going to scream. And, I remember where was it was in Missouri. What was the big one? Ferguson.
Yes.
I think there was a couple businesses that said, hey, we're pulling out. Like, we're not coming back. We're not going to rebuild here. Quick Trip was one of them. And they started, well, you can't do that. We have to have this and this and that. And it's like, well, you didn't act like you wanted it when you burned it down.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any business sense for us to rebuild here and take another complete loss, have to rebuild. And then not only that, all those people in Quick Trip, that manager was quick thinking and got them out through the back. Maybe nothing happens to them, but you don't know. They burnt down that whole building, ransacked the whole thing. Things can go sideways real quick in situations like those.
Yeah, real quick.
Because you look at the business owner in Dallas that they beat to death, essentially, a mob of like 15, 20 people.
For what reason?
Because he was trying to protect his business.
Fucking asinine. That shit just like breaks my heart in so many different ways.
I don't remember if you remember that one, but like after they got done, his body was all twisted and laying lifeless, and there's blood all over the ground.
Oh, totally. That was like right around the time I moved to this area. So, I mean, it was one of those like, whoa, that's what's going on right now.
Right. And it just seems like where's it going to happen next? Eventually, where did it get us? To the Kyle Rittenhouse case. Because it was just a matter of time before a situation like this happened. Right?
Yep.
Eventually, somebody was going to have a gun, and eventually, somebody was going to try to attack them, and they were going to protect themselves. I am 100% for protesting, 100%. Whether I agree with the protest or not, that is our right. That is our right as American. Freedom of speech and freedom to gather and freedom to protest things we don't like. And whether I agree with it or not, I will always support somebody's right to protest. But the minute it goes from protest to rioting to property destruction, you've lost me. You don't get that right. That's not a right. You run around and act a fool. That's not a right.
Exactly. Yeah, because that's goes too far. What was it? Martin Luther King had said something about like needing to make those wild things. I want to know exactly what it is. I'm going to do it disjustice if I don't know exactly what he said about it, because it had to do on the lines of like, you need to get people to notice.
Yeah. But you got to draw the attention to what you want noticed. And that's why he was about peaceful protest, because he knew as soon as you get away from, they're only going to see the bad stuff. They're not going to see the message. So if you're attacking police, destroying property, attacking individuals in the street, that's all they're going to see. They're not going to hear the message.
Yeah, his statement was, a riot is the language of the unheard. And I think where we went in 2020 was a little bit past that. I think it just got too much, because there could be the riots, the protesting, the way that it went, and looking at it in hindsight, what change are we at like a year later? What has happened? we're more cognizant about it, which we always were, but now we're more feared that something's going to be set on fire whenever we say the word protest.
Yeah, or one little incident. Crazy thing about it is like when you talk about the police stuff and you talk about police shootings and that, and I do think that in some of the cases that the police are wrong, and I think there should be consequences when you take a person's life and you're unjustified in doing so. Whether you're a police, whether you're a person, there has to be a standard of accountability. And if you don't have a standard of accountability for everyone, then you got nothing.
That's an amazing statement. Correct.
We can typically name all the incidents in a year or 2 year span, sometimes even a 3 year span on one hand. It's not as common as we want to make it out to be. But that doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be change. That doesn't mean that there doesn't need to be accountability when these things do happen. You're not going to get the accountability you want or the end all outcome you want when you don't go about it in the right way.
And hopefully that's like something that we're thinking, like as a society, is like, how can we have done that better? How could something better? Like, what was the results we got, and how did we miss, or how did we get what we wanted? Like, how did we get the results? And that's something I'm optimistic about, but still, like, the idea of currently is if there's a protest, we're burning something, like something's on fire, someone's getting shot, tear gas has to be there or something like that. And it's wild to know that is the temperature of everybody right now. Like, we're so ready to just go wild that we can't get anything done. Like, no cool heads are prevailing.
And they're definitely not out front. We have no real leaders in any of the communities. Honestly, there's nobody that can stand up and say, hey, let's not do this, or is in a position of power that will say, let's not do this to their side or their group. People will listen. Even if there is somebody out there to listen, they won't step up and say, hey, this isn't the way. This isn't the right way. This is not what we need to be doing. It's more or less they're stoking the flames rather than trying to put out the flames. And that's a big problem we have right now.
Again, another impactful statement, because nobody is trying to put out the flames. You're just trying to fan the flames. Like, it's massively true in every capacity. It's like nobody's trying to be a resolution. They're all just trying to be another weird problem in the machine of problems that we're in, and nothing is making sense in the way that I would like it to make sense. I'd like it to be easy. I'd like it to have these conversations where we can go from one side or the other to the other and really get along in the end, just with the general, disagreements, and let it be that. Let it be just like, all right, well, I disagree, but is this going to affect our day to day or not? But then the way that they put it is like, oh my God, everything affects our day to day, this, that, this. And it's like, calm it down, guys.
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what we talked about it in the beginning of this podcast, was when we are on opposite sides of the spectrum on ways we see things, but we always have respect for each other. I know there's some things that when I've put it to you like I've put it to you, you've stopped and you said, hey, that's a good point. Maybe even change your perspective on the issue. And there's things you say to me that I'm like, you got a point there. Like, I didn't look at it from that perspective. And that's what we need in this country versus what we have is which, you say something I don't like, you're a racist. And if you don't agree with this, then you're a bigot. There's no constructive, nobody can take what this guy is saying and apply it logically, or take what this guy is saying and do the same. It's just like, well, that's not how I think, so you're a bad person.
Mm-hmm. And especially like adding in the Me Too and the extra things. Like, I feel like we're all looking to call somebody something.
Right.
Like, always just looking to be like, we got to find a name to call you.
Or we got to be identified as, you got to be white, you got to be Asian, you got to be black, you got to be a woman, you got to be a man, you got to be homosexual, you got to be something. We can't just be Americans. We can't be people.
And that's what's really like wild. It just kind of makes every conversation very difficult, which could go back into why it's so hard to make friends. Because I think the way that we're all at in a quick thing is a thought of, well, what are you? You're this or that. You're not just you're not just Steven.
Yeah, I'm white male or Justin. They may not know what you are, but you're dark complected, and like somebody's perception of you and me may be different just based off of You might have one person that it's like, oh, well, he's a racist, he's a white male, privileged, and da 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 da. And then the next person could be like basically the exact opposite of what I said of viewing you based on the tone of your skin. And it's just not a way to live life as a person. It's not a way to have a constructive and positive society.
Exactly. Like, it's nothing. We're not growing as a society. I feel like we've gotten real stagnant in our growth.
But we can't deny that where we are now is light years from where we were.
Touche as well. Is it all part of growth?
Well, and some of it too is I don't necessarily think we're as far as apart as the media, politicians, make it out to seem, because politicians got to have something to run on constantly. And you notice they typically run on the same things. And
yeah,
do they ever fix them? Do they ever change anything? No, because if they fix anything, change anything, what are they going to run on next time? Because most of them have nothing. Every 4 years, we're going to bring up race and the border.
Right? Race and the border.
Like, think about that. Like, the very first time I voted in a presidential election was when George W. Bush became president for the first time. And they were talking about the border and race. Obama gets elected. What are main topics? Immigration and race. Trump, immigration and race. Biden, immigration and race. It's a never-ending cycle that they just pump out to us. I don't feel that day to day that is what everybody's real world experience is.
I agree. And then also, everybody's so freaking old. Fucking A. Why is everybody so old and in charge? When the majority of the population is 20 years younger than you, why in the hell are these old people of relevance to me? And that's what blows my mind. Like, to me personally,
they're not.
They shouldn't be.
The money's behind them.
The money's behind it.
And the only way it's our system, whether it's the law system, whatever the system is, it's only about money. It's money driven. You got to have money to run a campaign. So you got to get that money from somewhere.
Yeah.
Once you're in the GOP or the Democratic Party, they'll spend millions if they like you to keep you in that seat.
Yeah.
And you say, well, what does it really matter if this guy over here, he's got a better message? Well, the problem is you'll never hear his message. You'll hear the other guy's message 15 times a day on the radio when you get in your car, because he's got millions of dollars and they're running ads on every TV, everything. And that's all you'll remember, because the other guy doesn't have the money to do that. Basically, we're not electing people we really want to elect. We're being force-fed candidates.
It goes back to that South Park episode. It's like, do you want a shit sandwich or a turd taco? It's like, fuck, I don't want either.
I prefer to pass on both. Well, like, too bad.
Too bad. You need one of them. It's like, fuck.
There's no other parties.
Who's going to come up out of nowhere, do something? We have no choices.
It's a system where you have no choices, but it's designed to make you think you have choices.
Boom. Fucking again. Another impactful statement.
Just like when I said the law system is about whether you have money or not. I'm not going to say any names, but there's these 3 guys. They all got the same drug charges. One of them had the money to get a lawyer. The other 2 had a public defender. The other 2 got 6 years with 80% time served minimum. And the third one that had a lawyer, he got probation and community service. And he had a record.
Mm-hmm.
The other 2 had no prior records. But he had the money to pay for a lawyer, or his family did. So, there you go.
It's one of those, like, the negatives of the capitalistic society is that, because that's what funds it all.
Well, and I don't view that as a capitalistic thing. Some people may disagree with me or whatever. I mean, no matter whatever your system you're in, wherever the money's at, whether it's a socialist, capitalist, basically everybody else gets poor while a bunch of people with the money just take it all. A bunch of people at the top. There is no low class, middle class, wealthy, and it's in most socialist countries, the money just goes straight to the top, and the middle class just becomes part of the poor class. So then you look at their governments are corrupt. There is no systems of where you can get justice in those countries. You're just oppressed by your government, and it's not just people that had money, they took it from them.
Mm-hmm. No, there's no checks and balances either for them to follow up. Like we get checked all
Yeah.
the time.
And, our system is not perfect by any means, but probably perverted from what its original intention was when our country's founding fathers and our Constitution is not a capitalist constitution. It's not a capitalist document. It's a document that says the people are in control and the people will choose. It was meant for the people to govern themselves and protected them from the government and was set up so that a government couldn't get out of control. And it did anyways.
Corruption. Because I was talking, the lady I'm dating, she's, Albanian, comes from communist side. And one thing, as I was voicing my opinion about these little subjects, is that checks and balances she threw in there, which I found so profound to think about. Is like, that's true. That keeps us, although, like you said, it is a little, well, it's broken and it is probably perverted from the original intention, but it keeps it closer to what is possible, where the other ones are completely unchecked, unregulated. And that's why they're so corrupt, because heck, they make the rules and nobody's there to challenge it. Like nobody has the same equal voice to be like, hey, that's not right. I don't know why that's working out. Cause then it's like, guess what? Disappear. Bye. Don't challenge my thoughts.
Right.
I'll show you where this money is.
I don't want to misquote her, but the one night we went out and we were kind of talking about this stuff, and she kind of was just like, you Americans crack me up because you're the only country that's shocked that your government's corrupt.
Interesting.
Because we were talking about, like where she came from. She said the mob ran her country. Mm-hmm. And then she's like, you guys being shocked that your government is corrupt is kind of funny because everybody else sees it. That's what all governments are. When she said that, I was just like,
right, taken back, because I'm sitting here taken back, because that's the first time I've heard it.
I guess you were quite a bit more intoxicated than I was that night. So
hey.
That's maybe why you don't remember that.
Yeah, that's a good reason why. Look, we've been going on this one for a little bit. What else do you want to cover?
I guess you did mention the trial for the chick that was part of the child ring, the sex trafficking stuff.
Oof, man. I don't know if we have enough time on this one.
Yeah, I mean, that may be safe for another time.
Maybe, because I want to get some more information on it. I don't know anything about it. I know all about Kyle Rittenhouse and how people feel about it and whatnot, but it's like...
I seen a great thing on that is, why is Kyle Rittenhouse being live streamed? The only thing we're getting from that case is cartoons.
That's a good question, and I think I had chimed in a little bit earlier about it being dependent on the judge. If the judge allows that to go on, who he allows or who she allows in the courtroom. I mean, that it all has a lot of good questions that I'm just so astonished. I don't know anything about. It's nowhere. It's just like, oh, cool, it started.
No, and it's not being covered. It's not getting the media coverage that the Rittenhouse stuff was.
Which fuels into that.
So why? I mean, one's a clear self-defense case, and the other one is a huge sex trafficking ring that has huge names tied to it.
Mm-hmm.
This guy had connections to multiple presidents, to multiple celebrities, one of the people from the royal family, all this stuff, and then all of a sudden he hangs himself on suicide watch in a cell, which doesn't make any sense. And now his helper chick is on trial. Oh, nothing to see here. Let's just move along.
Well, I guess the good news is that it's only jury selection right now. So the actual trial starts on November 29th. So we got a few days ramp up to it.
Yeah. It should be getting more attention.
It should be, because I believe that the jury selection Kyle Rittenhouse had so much more attention about it, and this is something I'm so eager to hear. Like, what is going to happen? Who is going to talk? What is going to be said? What is going to be discovered? How large of a network is this?
Yeah, and I'd like to know more about the charges for her and what the trial is actually about, because unfortunately you can't put him on trial and you can't bring up things he did. A lot of the stuff got taken off the table when he died. It'll be interesting in how significant as a whole that trial is in general, because all of the big stuff is almost taken off the table with him being dead. From
my lack of depth of understanding, I feel she was there for a lot of it.
Oh, I mean, they were like close partners for a very long time. She definitely knows everything that went on with everyone it went on with.
Yeah, because I was over here reading. Maxwell is accused of helping Epstein recruit, groom, and ultimately abuse. So if she was that influential, she has to know.
Yeah, I remember hearing that one of the people that spoke out, one of the victims, saying that she was involved with sexual stuff with the Maxine chick. So, I mean, she was definitely involved 100%.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, as large as it is, it's wild to think, it's not a bigger operation. One man doing this is, no, that's not, it just can't be one person.
With no help.
With
and
no
then,
help, because there's
and
some others.
avoiding the law enforcement at all turns.
And having all that sort of influence, because some of the other people who had relations with him who were, convicted as pervs and whatnot would have like also their own islands, and the entire staff there on the island for the hotel or whatever property they own to manage the property, like housekeepers and they were all involved. They all saw and knew.
Yeah, like how do you keep them quiet? And the other thing too is a lot of those people that were working there could have very well been victims,
Mm-hmm.
right? How do we talk about how do you hide it, but if they're part of the victims, then that's an easier way to hide it because they're in the same boat as what's happening to the other people.
Can't wait. Gonna fuel a lot more dark conspiracies.
I think that they know she's not talking, and most of all the damaging stuff ain't coming out. Otherwise, I don't think we'd even be having this trial.
Got to be some freaking answers. There's got to be some questions to at least open up another area for people that are super internet sleuths to dive into. Like, has to be more. It just blows my mind about how it just is so freaking wild. It's so disgusting, and it's so just like out there in the open, and it's so like everybody has some sort of weird fucking interaction with this Epstein character, and it's like how I need to know more, and I know that there's things out there, and who's going to fall from it? Is the royal guy? Is somebody else going to just disappear? Who's going to die from it? Because then it opens up a whole lot of speculation and curious questions for others to dive into and really, waste hours trying to get answers. And that's what I want to be, that internet sleuth. I want to know, like, who else is dying? Who else is going on? Like, how many more awkward documentaries do I have to watch to get an insight onto what the hell is this about? Like, is it as dark and disturbing as it could be, or is it just surface face, a whole bunch of fucking underground underage people doing things with adults that shouldn't have been doing? How far does it go? How deep can it be? Like, it's weird in all capacities, because then everybody around it is then kind of a victim too, or had been a Me Too person who got canceled or had something to do it. And it's
maybe
like,
not a victim, but a predator.
You're right. A victim is a fucking weak ass word and I shouldn't have used, but predator into it.
Well, I mean, they could be both. I mean, I don't think you're wrong. I mean, I think you can be exposed to something and not be the predator, and almost being exposed to it makes you the victim. Feel your life is in jeopardy. You're not going to speak out.
Mm-hmm.
You're just kind of caught in that weird area where, like these people got connections and stuff. So even if you speak out, is anything going to happen, or you're just exposing yourself to danger?
Yeah. And it goes with like, what is going to be presented in court too? How does that work? All of it is open for manipulation.
Yes, very much so.
And these people who are, in connection to it, they're wealthy, like stupid wealthy.
Very wealthy, very tons of connections, governmental connections,
dark web connections. Like, just have a good internet computer, have a good computer to be able to get on the dark web. Like, you'll see things on Dateline about how they talk about hits being literally fucking cheap. And these people are millionaires. Like, they don't need money to do, like, now they have a ridiculous amount of access to where it doesn't even have to do the classic, like, oh, meet somebody in a dark alley and hand them cash. It's like, fucking do it on the dark web. Get some random person you've never met to pick up money somewhere you probably have never been, and then somebody's missing.
Right. But that's a big topic that we could spend a lot of time on, and probably need to save that for later. Let some more things happen with that trial, and then really jump back into that.
Yeah, that's probably best. I think we covered a whole lot today for sure.
We did. Shared some good thoughts. And that is it for us. Justin and Steven signing off. Thanks for listening, and have a good night.